are here. It is so funny. Right when I was putting it was like I was trying to see if we could stream this to Facebook too. And it was like, your Facebook ain't connected. I was like, okay, well, we just about you. We just on YouTube tonight.
We're on YouTube. Here we are.
We're here. So who knows we'll be here live, right? Who knows we'll actually come. This is our first time doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully one whole human will come to the scene and join us live.
I hope so. I put it in the group chat for the women in my family. We have a mastermind group. Well, some of the women in my family have a mastermind group. And I put it in the group chat about 30 minutes ago to let them know, hey, y'all, if you're not busy, even if you are, let it play in the background.
Let it play in the background.
I invited a couple of friends via text, and I did send it out in the newsletter. So, and I also put it on Instagram. So y'all know how to find us.
They know how to find us. And this is our first time. We'll be back again each week. So yes, I too did all the things. I don't think I put it in any private group chat. But that's totally fine because it's going to live on our YouTube channels and people can come back and they can check us out and they can watch it later and all the things. Right. So welcome to Black HERstory. And you're right. We got to have our own theme music. We're
going to come up with it. Yeah. We are giving ourselves grace. What did you say right before we came on that astrologically the time right now?
This is a little bit of a wacky week astrologically. Neptune is doing a lot of stuff and Neptune and Pluto is doing a lot. Some really interesting stuff. So Neptune is the imagination dreamer, but it's also the great dissolver. So it can kind of cause things to, hey, and then where did it go? So right. Good so people have been feeling like their technology, because I think Mercury is doing something interesting with it. So if you're feeling like that. So well, welcome. Well, so Keisean, do you want to we have some fun stuff to talk to you guys tonight about. And we have a whole topic and all the things, but because this is our first night, I feel like we should at least say who, people who may not know you.
I feel like that's a good idea. Yeah, I feel like that's a good idea. So my name is Keisean Raines and I am the Calm Coach. And the way that I connected with Kenya was through the coaching services that I offer, which also came through connecting on Clubhouse. For those who remember Clubhouse, rest in peace. I don't know if it's still there. But maybe
she said rest in peace. You said rest in peace.
But there was a big insurgent. It's still there. Okay, so shout out to Clubhouse. So we connected on Clubhouse and Kenya hosted a couple of rooms. And there was one room in particular that was conversations about the topic that we're going to get into later on today. And I just really liked her energy and we connected and then she hired me to coach her and then we just became friends. And so I'm happy to be here, happy to offer insight and empower and share my own personal stories in order to uplift the women and the men who tune into this show. So yeah.
I love it. Yes, that's exactly our story. I met some honestly, if it wasn't for Clubhouse, I'll be honest. If it wasn't for Clubhouse, obviously you and I wouldn't connect it. This wouldn't have happened. There's, with you being my coach, there's the podcast. Honestly, I don't know if I would have launched it. So all of that got connected. And the other side of Clubhouse for me was the whole astrology thing. I just kind of landed in these really amazing astrology rooms. And what made them really amazing for me, honestly, was because they were all Black people leading these discussions on astrology. And I, to be honest, had never been in spaces with Black astrologers.
Right.
And so being able to relate that to our historical stuff, that just really, I was like, this is powerful. So Clubhouse actually, and I will occasionally go to some of the recorded astrology rooms that I really like, and I'll play them back, but I don't go anything lifetime at this point. Not so much.
Yeah. So. I think I got a notification today via email that somebody was doing a Clubhouse, and I was like, is this an old email? But no, it's just a trip how active we were on that platform during quarantine. It was one of the ways that folks stayed connected. And I think, like you said, it served as a space, in most cases, a safe space for people to share their ideas, their insights, talk about their businesses, share resources. And there's a couple of people that I connected with through that particular platform that I'm still connected to today. So it definitely it served its purpose as far as that goes. But
No, Clubhouse was, it was like the truth. And then it's interesting how it shifted. I know for me, I just didn't have time to be sitting online. I didn't understand ever how, and I still don't really understand how people can really commit to that level of hours.
Yeah.
Hours and hours in the spaces like that. That for me was like, okay, this is a lot.
Yeah. And it was impeding. In some ways, I would kind of same thing with any social media platform. To be honest, I have to be really intentional about how much time that I'm spending on any given platform, specifically the ones where I'm not necessarily a creator, but more of a consumer.
Right.
If I notice I'm doing a lot of scrolling and I look up, I'm like, oh, it's been 45 minutes, girl. You know what I mean? Versus when you're on there doing a live, that's different. If you're on there responding to comments or giving feedback, that's different. But recognizing how we have so many things that we can do to distract ourselves, to engage in, to entertain ourselves. And when we don't pay attention to how much time that takes up, then we can feel it in other ways when we feel like we're forgetting things, or, we're not checking off things that we want to do on our to-do list and things like that. So I understand. I don't see how people can stay on there for 12 hours.
And especially with the world opening, once the world started really opening up, it's like, okay, guys. And so then me, the counselor, now I'm evaluating people. I'm like, wait a minute, there's a deeper issue here that you are needing, so I'm like, okay, Kenya, this is not that deep. Right. You need to. So a bit of so those of you who don't know me, Keisean kind of said how we met. I long story short, I do a lot of things. And you can, if you are looking at this on the channel, you already kind of know that. But the space that I'm really living in right now, and really living pretty hard, and I'm really loving it, is just doing healing spaces. Like really, whether that be in retreat form, that be in coaching, that be with using astrology, even with music at this point. I do have a music situation that I'm trying to decide, do I, what is the situation, Kenya, with this music? But I do have a bit of, that's still in my pocket. And so, but really, if I'm going to do music, it's in the healing spaces at this point. That's really what I'm willing to do. That's where my energy feels like it's supposed to be. And so that's where that's kind of more or less who I am. And we'll talk a little bit later, and we'll always kind of bring this up, different things that may be going on that we can offer to the community. But we really wanted this space to be less, to just have flow to it. And there's a reason we're calling it HERstories, because I do think that there are stories still, particularly of our kind of age demographic, which is 40 plus, 40.
For those who don't know,
45 plus.
Did they still call that middle age? Wait, so I read an article this week that was in the New York Times that was about the millennials' midlife crisis experience, or the potential midlife crisis for the millennials. And when they said, midlife is like, mid 40s, I was like, am I in my midlife? When did I get here?
Yeah.
So I guess
no, it is midlife. No.
Middle aged then? Is that
yes? Yes, you are. You didn't know.
Girl,
I'm older than Keisean. So yeah, girl. I'm gonna just put it. Yes. Yes.
I was like, don't I still get to be? You know how I knew that I was getting older? And I actually saw a comedian talking about this, and I was like, okay, so apparently it's not just me. Was, filling out something online, an online form. And I think it was when I was filling out my, it was for my automobile insurance, like renewing my auto insurance. And, where you have to put in like your age, like bracket of
that's what it's really.
Or when you put in your birth date, and you have to scroll back several times until you see your
like, oh my God, I'm scrolling.
I was like, okay, so yeah.
Listen, you wait till you turn 50. I just turned 50. It is so funny because I know my brain is not really registered all of this. Okay, so y'all, I love Usher. I'm just letting everybody know I really enjoy Usher. And I enjoy Usher mainly because as a performer. But most artists, particularly me as a musician, if I love you, I have seen you live. Like I,
Okay.
I don't do this whole, well, one day. No. Let's go buy the tickets. Let's go. So yes, I saw Whitney when she was alive, Michael Jackson a few times, Prince several times, seen Janet, seen Beyonce, all the major, Diana, Ross, all of those people. I'm about that life. I have not seen Sting. That's an issue because I actually really love Sting. Okay. And then there's Usher, right? So Usher is doing a residency in Vegas. Right. Yes. So why is Kenya like, I'm on Ticketmaster, call my girlfriend, girl, can you go? You want to go? And I'm like, okay, I'm 50, like doing, is this, I felt, you remember when you're like 20, 21? Mm-hmm. So it's in the mind though. And so we want to tell our stories to kind of let people know that no, when you turn this age, it's not like, all of a sudden I'm preparing for retirement. Like it's like just getting started.
Yeah. Well, because like you said, now you can get on Ticketmaster and book the flight and book the concert. Whereas in your 20s, you're like, so how many more hours do I need to work at my part-time job so I can afford to buy? Is there somebody else? Now it's like, oh, I'm going. It's just a matter of scheduling.
Now I will say, now Usher don't now. Okay, so Usher's tickets. You have to be 50 or you to go to this show. Yes, you're not going to his show at 23.
No, ma'am.
Right, no, unless you're going to his show at 33. I don't know, depending on how you're flowing, because those tickets are not cheap.
Yeah, was like the Beyonce tickets. Oh, there was a whole, you had to enter to try to win the lottery just to be able to buy the tickets. And then once you got your name in the hat to be able to buy the tickets, then you get to see how much the tickets actually cost. And that's when you have a moment where you're like, do I love Beyonce that much? Or since I have seen her before, what's really going to be different about this show? Okay. Is she going to do something really different?
I don't even peek in that territory. I don't. Okay, Jill Scott is my next person right now because she's doing a whole. It's the 25th, I think, anniversary of her album, her first album. Who's Jill Scott? Mm-hmm. And she's gonna perform the album and do it in the order of the album. And so I was like, okay. And I love Jill. I've seen her insanely amount of time. I don't even know. But anyway, but I've seen her a lot of times. So if I don't go, I'm not but I haven't seen Usher yet. So I broke down, me and my girlfriend. I said, girl, we acting like we are what age? We though got our tickets and now we got to work on, all the other things. So love it. So we have a topic, but before we do a topic, is there any other current event that you think that's happening or that has happened recently for you that's been kind of like, that you want to share, talk?
What's interesting is, like I mentioned earlier, I am active on social media. I do, in addition to other things that I do, consider myself to be a content creator. And I know what's big in the social media world this week is this potential ban on TikTok. So we experienced this, in the previous, presidential administration that they were thinking about banning TikTok. And so all over TikTok, folks are up in an uproar about the potential of losing access to this app. And then what also happened this week is that Instagram announced that they will no longer be compensating creators for Reels. So for some content creators that were eligible, you were actually able to earn income from your Reels. And Instagram is like, we ain't doing that no more. Because we weren't making it, because Meta was saying, we're not making enough money off of these to keep paying the creators. So that stood out to me because I know there's some people who are content creators full time. That's their only source of income. For me, it's something in addition to other things that I do. But it just reminded me of how the content creator culture is part of how we create media at this point. The old school way of getting music even produced or getting films distributed or TV shows sold or seen, things are very different. And so that stood out to me as hopefully a reminder also to other content creators that it's important, if not imperative, that you content that you can own, that you can deliver to your audience in a way that you get to decide where it is, how much it costs, how do people access it, because you never know. These platforms are not always thinking about your best interest when they're making decisions.
Well, So not to bring up too much astrology, but Neptune, I said the great dissolver. It's interesting that you said that this came out this week talking. And so that's kind of an example of these things that are here one day and then can quickly go. And so our ability to really make sure that you're frozen on my end. I hope I'm still here. Okay, there you are. I was just making sure it wasn't my end because, but it might be. Anyway, but what you just said at the end, as far as really having your own platform because that's always been my concern with social media is building and putting all your eggs in the basket that you don't own. And, YouTube is the closest, honestly, that's probably going to be set up they've figured out a way to monetize it in a way that does give you a little bit of better partnership involved, but there's a lot that you kind of have to do to get in there. But, people have very, very full, careers and stuff from their YouTube channels and, making the videos, depending on how you're uploading that, you still own, if I'm uploading a video, now this live is a little bit different, but if I'm creating my own video and then uploading it, I at least still have my content. Right. So if I want to put it on another platform or create it, I have my content. Right. Whereas it's a little bit trickier with Reels and these other things. They kind of have you can upload stuff too, but all the little cool things, the sound voice and the effects, and they own all that. So that's a hot, yeah.
So that was my hot take.
That's your hot. No, I think that's, I don't have it. So for me, this is a sad take. Bobby Caldwell. Bobby Caldwell passed away. He transitioned. Bobby Caldwell is What You Won't Do for Love. Y'all know. What you won't do for love. Okay, y'all know What You Won't Do for Love. Bobby Caldwell also, though, and I don't know, maybe people have tuned in now, but Common's The Light, the song, There Is a Light That Shines. Okay, The Light, that's Bobby Caldwell.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. And then My Flame. If you heard, you'd be like, that's Bobby Caldwell.
Was a soul singer, R&B.
Yes. Bobby Caldwell.
A white man, though. Yes.
Yes. And so this is the other point.
Okay.
Bobby Caldwell, I would probably say, and hi to Lisa Ray. Talisa is chiming in.
Hi, Talisa.
It is good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Bobby Caldwell is who I would say was he was the father of Blue Eyes. So he started, I think, I don't know how many other, and I mean really allowing himself to be not kind of I'm gonna try to get white people to really accommodate my now blue-eyed soul. Really, no, I'm here for the community who is for me. Okay. And, he was in the 70s really breaking out when he, amongst that 70s soul space where I think a lot of different white artists were breaking out in those spaces, but he always stayed pretty committed to keeping his audience, I would say, within a predominantly Black space and R&B and soul space. So he had been ill for a while. So this wasn't a sudden situation, but nevertheless, we give love and thank you, Bobby Caldwell, for, Mike, I don't know how many people have redone What You Won't Do for Love.
I did not know that Bobby Caldwell was not a Black man.
How long? I'm sorry, cut out a little. How long? When did you realize he was?
Oh, until 24 hours ago. I'd never seen a picture or anything. I knew the music, but I'd seen somebody post about it on social, and I was like, "Oh,
yes,
okay,
right." Yes.
Learn something new every day.
And very much a white guy. Not trying to make it look
no, he's just I am a white man. Here I am.
I'm a white man, and these are my songs. And that's why you gotta love Bobby Caldwell, because that was his energy. That was his energy. Like so all right. So our topic for the night, what we want to dig into for the next little bit. I'm going to put it up here so that you guys know what it is we are going to talk about tonight. So in the scroll, do we fear rest? Do we fear rest? Now, I have some thoughts of how even I got to the point of this. Keisean mentioned how we met on Clubhouse talking about this idea of, well, we didn't, I don't think you said what
I didn't really say it. I was keeping it later.
Yes. We were in a room about, where was it, a room about rest?
I think it was a room. It was the room about rest, but you had a title for it. Ken is very clever with the title. Like he worked into rest some type of way. I can't remember the title, but it was a room about rest. The topic was about rest. And I remember just from that conversation, even hearing what other women had to offer, hearing what you shared. That was one of the first conversations that I had heard like publicly outside of just, girlfriends and, family or whatever, talking about how we, whether consciously or unconsciously, just avoid it.
Yes. And that's why, that's why I kind of wanted to switch the topic, because I feel like right now, and I'm glad that this is happening, that people are way more having conversations. Like that was my first time too, being really on Clubhouse, having the space to really talk about rest. I wrote a song about rest over a decade ago. So the song that I haven't officially released that song of rest, but that's a reiteration of a song of rest that I did release back in 2010. And so I was pretty early trying to talk about rest, and it, people are like, oh yeah, we should take a nap. It wasn't really clicking, and so now I do think that it's finally like, oh, you mean I shouldn't always be doing
something all the time. Yeah.
And so, so I think we're finally talking about it, and it's starting to, especially if you are in the wellness space, especially if you are in spaces where you are talking about mental health, or even if you're, I'm going to say, if you're doing more work amongst Black women right now, I think it is becoming more of the word. But there feels like there's a but to me. And so the but I put was, do we fear rest? So what are your thoughts about this?
When I think about the conversation starting to circle around, whether it was in Clubhouse rooms or amongst, friends and family, I think if we think back to the pandemic, and it was just a couple of years ago, and we think about those first, 6 to 8 months where we were stuck in our homes, our kids were out of school, we weren't going to work, and we were trying to work from home for the very first time. And we started to recognize how much our work schedule was really impacting our daily lives. Even though we weren't every day, we might not be getting up and taking the kids to school, but we were still required to be on a Zoom or on a computer or actively working constantly. When we think about the folks who work in healthcare, how, we're banging pots together and ringing bells when they came home every day, and started hearing conversation about this topic of burnout or compassion fatigue, and starting to understand, wait a minute, how were we keeping this pace all this time of 12, 18-hour days at work, raising kids, at home, with partners, single, whatever you got going on? How are we keeping that pace without everybody just experiencing burnout and everybody just kind of crashing? So for some of us, the very first time we experienced any sort of rest was during quarantine. It was the very first time. Well, we're like, oh, I can close this computer room.
And I can still, and not worry about loss or about, something, or even the idea, hopefully, then not even being judged, because we're all kind of in the same boat.
We're all in the same boat. Exactly. So if I'm logging off of my meeting at 12 and I still have my PJs on, no one's going to judge me, because there's a million other people out here doing the same thing.
Right.
So then once we started to transition out of quarantine, or what I call like COVID season 1, and we moved into COVID season 2, in 2021, and some people started returning to work, or the kids went back to school. So some people noticed that they almost instantly went back into these toxic levels of productivity and these toxic levels of work, and rest just fell by the wayside. It just went back to something that you only do on vacation, or you only do on weekends, or you only do every once in a while. So when we think about the question of the topic of, do we fear rest? I think that what happens, we fear what will happen if we do rest.
Exactly. That's it right there.
Yeah.
What will happen if we do fear rest? And that's kind of why I wanted to bring the topic up, because I don't think this is a conscious, if you ask somebody, a choice, of course I want to rest. Of course. Why would I fear? Of course. And it's like, but you have to understand what rest will then cause or create. And this is the part that I think, particularly as Black women, and maybe we can share some of our own, experiences of fear, because and it's very deep. Like, it's not in this part. It's deeper, and it's and I will say, yes, I probably have feared rest in points in my life extremely, which is why I wrote the song. I was fearing rest in the way of, if I rest, then my truth was going to have to come up. Meaning I was running, doing everything else but what I really should have been doing for Kenya.
Right.
And I knew that. And so for me, this whole rest idea, like I said, I wrote a song like in 2010. But before that, what got me there was because I was avoiding doing music. And I was avoiding it because inside of me, I knew if I start tapping into music, this whole life that I've created, this nice white picket fence with, 2.5 children and husband and all this is going to start to come into question. Yeah. This is all going to start, because is this really in alignment with who you really think you are? So if you get still and start really thinking about your life, what are you going to do with this life? Like, if you know this other life that is always doing this. If I get still and start looking at it, so what? I'm just going to look at it. So for me, that's why I avoided rest, because I kept running, trying to do everything but the thing that I knew was really inside me. And it was really because I had created, I had manifested, if you want to even use that language, I had created this life of what I thought was going to make me happy. I thought these things were going to make me happy. And so once I got in the middle of, working, I was working full-time in higher ed and doing clinical physical therapy. And I had my baby, and my babies were healthy, and I'm in a marriage, and I've got a nice house. And so these are things that I was told will make things better.
Right.
And I wasn't feeling.
There were things that we were taught to aspire to, So for me, I think, I know that I avoided rest because I treated rest like an arrival point, like a goal, like a finish line. Like,
so once I finish,
once I do all these things, then I will rest. Like when I worked in corporate America, you get your 2 weeks of vacation every year. So every other 50 weeks of the entire year, it's like, oh no, you got just working toward them 2 weeks, just working toward them 2 weeks. I'm just going to keep going. And then it was also treated like an arrival point, because it was like, I'll rest when I'm older. I'll rest when my son is older. I'll rest when I have more time. This idea that somehow I was just going to magically end up with more time. And when I got that time, I was going to have time to rest. That I don't know where that came from, other than just being programmed, and also watching the other, the people who raised us, watching our mothers, our fathers, our caretakers, our communities, and seeing like, I don't know nobody I know out here taking naps. I don't know no grown-ups who's like, oh girl, I'm about to take a nap. That was what we did in kindergarten and school. That's what little kids did. They rested. But part of being an adult, I thought part of being an adult was forfeiting rest. And also when I became an entrepreneur, tapping into some very toxic work habits that were taught by coaches and other motivational speakers, and no shame to them, but the ones who say like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. No, partner, you're gonna be dead when you're dead. You're not gonna be sleeping, you're gonna be dead. But this idea of like team no sleep, that's a true hustler. That's how you become an entrepreneur. That's how you get to that next level. So I totally bought into that when I left corporate America and decided to build something of my own.
That's what I was going to say is but then we had this weird time period, the team hustle, the team, no sleep culture. Like, let's, get up, get up and, what was it? Grand grind. Oh, get up and grind. So instead of grand rising, grand grinding,
Yes.
And so then we got into, and that was that's pretty like right before COVID, pretty much like, just like, we got to grind, we got to make it happen. Music culture is saying that. And then it was like, no, we're going to shut this all down. We're going to shut this down. Now we do have, I want to read, I'm going to put, on here, Talisa said, oh, so true. People work forever and never get a chance to enjoy their lives, retire at 65 and be gone by 70.
Right.
Come on.
That
yes. Part. I've seen so many family members that be the case. I watched my uncle, literally, I think my Uncle Leon retired, I want to say maybe 4 months before he died, a few months before, after working for 60, whatever, like many years. And, so this thing of working ourselves is really serious. So at the same time, this fear of resting and what it will reveal.
Right.
I finally I collapsed, like spiritually, emotionally. I literally just couldn't go anymore. I would drive. I remember this so clearly. And I would ask myself, this was back in, probably like 2008, somewhere in there. And I would be driving. At the time I was working at a university. I wasn't doing anything creatively. Everything you see that I do right now, none of that was going on. And I knew, and at that time I was also having a lot of issues with my marriage, feeling really, really, nothing disrespectful to my former husband, but feeling very, this isn't me. This isn't me. This is a nice person. These are good, but this isn't Kenya. And so I don't know if you remember Dr. Robin on Oprah.
Oh,
Dr. Robin, yeah. What was Dr. Robin's last name? I think she just went by Dr. Robin.
Okay, I remember Dr. Robin, yeah.
I think she's still around somewhere. But anyway, Dr. Robin used to do this radio show, and she was like the Iyala, like just speaking listen, these are all. And I would listen to her driving. And I would cry literally every day driving to work, I'm like, when am I going to be happy again? When am I going to not cry to work? Like, this is awful. I am literally sad every day. And I would get myself together. Like, I kind of knew at the point at which I need to get myself together, because I was getting ready to go on campus. And there was this one day I had gotten to campus and I couldn't get myself together. And I was like, okay, I got to get in because I have to teach. And these classes are going to start soon. I got to go in. And I was like, okay. So I pulled myself and I got in, I went to the bathroom and I came out of the bathroom, and one of my coworkers was like, hi, Kenya, how are you? And I was like, ah, and I like broke down. Like, I couldn't, she said, how are you? And I really not like, ah, she was like, no, just how like are you? And I'm like, I'm not good. I'm not good. And she didn't know left from right in my life, right? So I couldn't then go and confide in her what was really going on. But for me, it was the first time I was like, you couldn't keep this together. You couldn't keep this together. You have to let it fall apart, Kenya. You have to go sit down. And that was, I'm not saying I just dropped everything at that point, but it was the first time that it kind of hit me. This is not good. Like, you are emotionally spent. And I think the only reason it didn't manifest in my body completely was because of my age. And, I was at a point in my life where I was still working out pretty. So my body was still like, yeah, we got you, girl. we good. We good. Yeah. We good. Right. But see, at this point where the body's like, well, we try to handle menopause over here. We try to handle this job you've been doing over here forever, this weight that you've been collecting over here. So it's
your
like,
kneecaps
baby,
ain't the same as they used to be. Like, things are different now. Things are different now. We feel it differently. And I think, I had an experience before I left my last job, when I was working for Apple. I remember there was an extended family member who suddenly passed away, and she wasn't even 60 years old yet. So she was in her 50s, and she just collapsed and was gone. And I remember getting the news about that while I was getting ready to go into work that particular day.
Oh, wow.
And I walked in and wasn't greeted like you were greeted. I was greeted with the like, oh, you're, like, what's wrong? And I was like, you want to know what's wrong? What's wrong is we're wasting the time here. What do you call it? Norma Raymond, where I was like, this is all bullshit. None of this matters. I had a whole moment where I was like, this is dumb. And I literally was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Whatever this job is, I don't recommend this, y'all. It's not a good idea. Especially if you're a single mom. Don't just quit your job with no notice, okay? Don't do that. I'm not saying this is not advice. This is just my own personal experience.
This is my story, right?
My story, right? But I had a moment where I just broke, and I was like, this is not what I want to spend my life doing anymore. And I had to go through the process of, transitioning out of that role. And then I was invited into my first yoga class. And then I was invited into my first meditation experience. And those are the moments where I realized how much I was storing in my body as a result of just sleep deprivation, commuting for 2 hours to and from work, raising a kid, working, all the things. It didn't show up in my body as illness. However, I knew in that moment that I was like, bump that if I had done it one more day, it would have shown up. It would have shown up some way. And I was like, I'm not risking that. Yeah.
Girl. Yes. And this is the thing. Those of you who, are watching and who, again, your body, it's, in its earlier ages, it's not to say that as we age, our bodies fall apart, because that's not true. But our bodies do shift. And they need different things. And one of the things that they do need is more. So yoga, what's so wonderful about yoga is it pushes you into stillness. It pushes you into breath, and really utilizing your breath to help flow and movement. And so this is the stage that your body is actually really, that's what it's wanting now. Like, it's wanting more of that. And so when we keep trying to hustle it too is like, so now I will say this. Now, don't think I've arrived. Okay. So I just recently really, really, really had to get honest with myself. I'm still, in the entrepreneurial space. I'm working at the university. My kids are older, so it's not as hands-on, but emotionally, yes.
It seems like more emotional labor the older that the kids get.
Yes, it's a whole different thing. And so I was having I don't want to say health issues, but I was having some physical stuff, some things that I just, even in my certified health coach, physical therapist, licensed self, all those degrees in education, I'm going to just tell y'all the truth about what was going on, because it's her story. I was having crazy constipation. Like, it was, and I've always,
it wasn't nothing moving, right? It was like, we ain't going nowhere right now, Kenya. We're staying right here. Yeah.
And the thing is I've always, my whole life, kind of, constipation has always been that thing that I'm like, okay, you got to watch it, girl, what you eating, how you moving, what you drinking. But this particular time, about 3 months ago, my body said, okay, Kenya, you've been thinking, because I eat whole foods, I work, and I'm like drinking 20 gallons of water, like, and the poop is like, we're not coming out. So I could feel the poop there, but it wasn't coming out. I'm like, what the hell? So now, of course, my brain, I got everything at this point, right? I'm like, I got a tumor up my ass. It's not coming. It's blocking everything.
Self-diagnosed. I have malaria. It's all the things that you can have. Yep, I got that too. Prostate. Yep, got one of prostate.
I got a prostate.
I got a prostate, and it's not doing well.
Right. Exactly. So once I kind of said, you know what, Kenya, no, put on this. Long story short, it was my pelvic floor, which we're going to talk more about later. Your pelvic floor is the muscles. A lot of women, we have a thing called a pelvic floor, and that's what's kind of holding, is what's holding the uterus, and it's doing all the muscle work for us.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're saying, oh, I'm Kegeling and all of that, it's the pelvic floor, but you shouldn't. I've been Kegeling hard my whole life. Well, guess what? Kegeling fucked me up. Okay. So I was told, stop Kegeling immediately. Like, I'm like.
So everybody who's doing that right now, chill out. Just till the end of the show. Don't Kegel for the next 20 minutes. We're going to do a whole episode about your pelvic floor. But yes.
But just understand, if you're constipated, you need to watch out with your Kegeling, because what's happening is you're tightening the pelvic floor. So the pelvic floor attaches to the rectum. It controls the muscle. And so if it's tight, it will close it. It clenches it. And guess where in women a lot of our anxiety and stress fall into? Where? Our pelvic floor. Why? Because we're women and we have a womb. What's the body trying to do? Protect the womb, protect the woman. She's anxious, she's stressed, protect her. Clench.
Right.
And so all my anxiety was going into my pelvic floor. And it had gotten so bad, not only with the constipation, but I was just having pain in my butt and my legs. It was gotten bad. So I finally got my brain and my soul and my spirit. And I came to ancestors. I said, y'all got to help me out, because I can't feel like this. I can't feel like this. And when I finally started seeing the pelvic floor physical therapist, who I promise will bring her in this space, because she has completely changed my life. She was finally showing me, like, girl, your stress is sitting right in here. And I'm like, no, I got to hold my uterus is going to fall out, girl. My uterus is low.
It's malaria. I promise. I know what it is. It's not that. It's something else.
My rectum, I got to hold it up. It's falling out.
She's like, no, girl, your vagina needs to rest and your pelvic floor needs to rest.
My pelvic floor and my vagina needs to rest.
Yes. Let her rest.
I said, what? So she's like, release. And I'm like, what? I said, and I literally felt like, I'm like, no, my uterus is going to come down. She's like, Kenya, your uterus is all the way up here, baby. She's like, let it. So I said, well, what's happening when I rest? She's like, that's the pelvic floor just droop.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my God. And when it goes droop, that's when the poop can come out.
There you go.
I haven't had any poop problems since I've been seeing her. So this is how serious rest can manifest itself in us. Like, it's no joke. It's no joke. Oh, I hope Keisean is here. We're frozen. I hope. Can you hear me, Keisean? Is it me? I hope it's not me. I'm gonna keep talking. I don't know. I think Keisean's gotten frozen. We've been trying to ask the internet gods to be on our side. I still see everything. I don't know if she does. So I want to read a little bit while we're waiting for Keisean to get back in, and I hope it didn't drop her completely out. Oh, let me see. No, I don't think it did. Talisa, I love that you're really commenting. So I want to come to this. Makes perfect sense. I can hear you, Kenya. Oh, thank you. So you can hear me. So yeah, I think that Keisean, she'll come back. She'll come back. She's going to log herself back in. So I would love, Talisa, you said terrifying, I'm sure, mesothelial. You was like, yeah, that's what I thought I had. Right? I cannot urge you. This really kind of freaks me out, because you have to understand, I actually teach. Let me bring Keisean back in. She's coming back in.
Girl, Neptune, whoever they are, Neptune and all the other planets, they ain't trying to let me be great today, y'all. I've been trying all day, but here I am. I'm back.
She's back. I didn't say much anything. I was just going to say that, you just had to, here I am. I help other women learn how to create ease, create rest. And I thought I was doing that, but it really, spirit. And this is the thing, women, as we develop in our growth and our healing and our process, and don't think that there is a finish line. It's not a finish line. It's okay. Now let's go to the next space. And so, and it's usually a leveled up, and it's usually, I think the more you're really doing developmental work, it's almost like God, spirit, soul has to get a little more sophisticated to get you a little bit more nuanced, to get you to tap in deeper. So it's like, if I'm going to do this deep work with women, then I'm going to need to get deeper. And
Absolutely.
so this pushed me, this was a lot of lessons here, because a lot was happening. Keisean knows my pipes burst in my house. I thought I was going to have to move. Like, it was a lot. But I feel like once, in the moment I tapped into what was really going on with this anxiety and stress and how it was manifesting in my body. And so I started stretching every morning for 30 to 40 minutes, just stretching. Nope, I'm not going to lift no weights. Nope, I'm not going to go for no run. Nope, I did yoga. Yoga helps. I would, and we're talking stretch, like legs out, because you got to get the pelvic floor. Yes, like stretch out. And so women, we kind of, oh, this is our legs. We got to cross our legs. I had to open up the pelvis. It's like, we got to get this girl together. And it really did. You know, I'm still a work in progress. I'm still in physical therapy. I got my appointment tomorrow. We're still working things through. But it's so much better. So I fear rest in many times. Just when I think I don't, there's a lot of times there are things that are still very hidden from us that rest can reveal.
Right.
And
right. Well, and I think, like you said earlier, it's not necessarily the rest, because if you ask somebody and like, do you fear rest? Are you afraid of rest? Does rest make you uncomfortable? Some people, they'll say yes. You know, I'm one of those people where, like you said, still a work in progress, still recognizing where these habits of what I call toxic productivity, where they came from, and understanding the root of why they exist. And productivity, while if utilized appropriately, like anything else, if done in moderation, like most things, is not problematic. But when productivity becomes an escape tactic to avoid the quiet, to avoid the stillness, or to avoid yourself, that's when it becomes problematic. So I know that as an entrepreneur, I remember early on a mentor, and I know they meant well, and I probably just took it too far what they said, because what they said is very simple. I'm gonna tell you what they said. So I had a mentor early on who said the difference between someone who is self-employed and unemployed is what's on their schedule. So if you look at your schedule and you don't see it filled with appointments and time blocks and tasks and things to do, you ain't self-employed, you unemployed. And that was told to me almost a decade ago. And I remember it because it stuck. And I was like, ooh, okay, got it. Fill my schedule.
Isn't that awful? Yeah.
And it stuck, and it became a habit, and it became a way of living for me, to where I was defining myself based on how busy I was constantly from morning until evening. And also this hustle culture, this team no sleep culture, this rise and grind culture, where I was like, well, shit. And when I was working in corporate America, I only had to work 8 hours a day, and I was guaranteed a paycheck. This entrepreneur thing, will I ever sleep again? You know, so I realized that it got into this, it became part of my identity, is how productive I could be. It became connected to my self-worth. How productive I could be. It became a measure of my success as an entrepreneur, is how productive I could be. And it wasn't until I started to, almost by force, universe, thank y'all for making me sit down. It wasn't until I sat down and was like, okay, but are you actually making any more money by working all this time, girl? What if you did take a day off? What if you took a week off? Is it really going to affect your paycheck that much? And it wasn't until I sat back and really asked myself, why are you really staying so busy? And a truth that was revealed for me was, so I can prove to everybody else that me walking away from that job was a good idea.
Thank you.
I can't just be over here chilling, because then they're going to think I'm unemployed. But no, I'm self-employed. I'm building something here, and it takes time for me to get to that. But I was avoiding rest because I was afraid of what it was going to reveal about me, instead of me recognizing I know what I'm doing. I made this decision intentionally. I know the vision that I have for my life. I know that I can produce more with less work. I know how I'm set up. I know how organized I am. I know I'm a taskmaster. I don't need to work 60 hours a week for anybody ever again. So it took getting to that place of seeing like, oh, I'm doing this because I'm trying to prove something. Bump that. I'm going to be the one who's like, girl, do you ever work?
Right. And say, in fact, right. In fact, and so okay. So Talisa has a very good question. So Talisa, I'm gonna put this up. What do you recommend to ensure you're getting the right kind of rest, girl? So my thoughts about this. I don't know if there is a right kind of rest. I think that the bigger issue is kind of to what Keisean was just saying, is really understanding what's making you avoid it. I think that you have to get really still with self and better understand why aren't you getting it in the first place. I don't think there's a wrong or a right. Like if you want to do naps, if you want to, just decide I'm going to take personal health day once a week. If you decide every day at 2 p.m. I have my own siesta, I think you do whatever's going to free you up. I think the bigger thing is to allow yourself to experience rest in different ways so that you can decide for yourself really what did allow you to feel more ease. I think we have a hard time getting to that point. To Keisean's point, is that especially as Black women, and this now goes, and one of the feature things, we feature products and services at the end, so stay tuned. And one of the things we're going to feature really highlights this. But this slave mentality of work, we have to, ladies, we have to dig deep on this, okay? This is not just a phenomenon that happened with hustle culture.
Right.
This is something we were brought into this country to work beyond means, to death, literally.
Right.
Work to death, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason why not to death is because they need you too much.
Exactly.
So let's work you hard enough right before death.
Right. And then give you 2 weeks off and then tell you to come back and work for 50 weeks straight with no breaks.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So I think we have to understand understand again that for us, 400 plus, almost 500 years of do you know how heavy in our DNA that how many generations are going through that level of labor? So to think that in our little, 150 years, 160 years of freedom per se, that we all of a sudden are freed from the work gene. No, it's heavy in us. It's heavy in us. So our worth, to me, sometimes I feel like Black excellence and doing all the best things is kind of golden handcuffs, because now am I excellent if I ain't doing nothing?
Ma'am. And better yet, if what it takes for me to be excellent means I have to sacrifice rest, AKA something that is a pillar of my well-being, in order to achieve that level of excellence, I don't want it. Is it actually worth all that? Because this idea that people think, and this is something I think is a common misconception, is that people often think that the higher up the ladder of success, material success that you go, that the more time freedom you have. And that is a Liz's eye. That is a fallacy. Ain't no parts of that true. Because the higher up the level that you go, the more responsibility you have, the more expectations that are placed on you, the more places you have to be and people that you got to deal with. It's not like you don't work yourself out of a job as much as people think you do, because the stakes are higher, the higher up that you go. And so if you already are going in, like you said, Kenya, with an inherited genetic need to work based on what was placed on the shoulders of our ancestors, you think the higher up you go, you're going to have more time? No. So it's like you have to make rest a requirement. It has to be part of your livelihood. It has to become something that you're not working toward, but something that you just do. You just do it. Like you get up every morning, you brush your teeth. You eat, hopefully every day, unless you went Paltrow and you just drink bone broth. But
I saw your reel.
hopefully you're
side joke.
eating and sleeping, and hygiene is a priority, and sleep is a priority. And like to Lisa's point, I think to kind of echo what you said, it's less about the type of rest, whatever method that is. It could be meditation, it could be a recline, it could be a full-on nap, it could be a gentle walk, it could be stretching. It's measuring how the rest affects you.
Yes.
That's how I measure it. Is like, oh, okay, that felt good. You know what I mean? Or sometimes when I sit and meditate, I don't necessarily feel rested. I might feel more clear and more focused.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sometimes when I go for a walk, I might feel energized, not necessarily rested. So it's kind of like you mentioned, exploring a couple of different types of rest and asking yourself, how do I feel about that particular experience? How did that impact me? And then you
Yes.
start to come up with your own recipes for rest.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I think, kind of one more thing, and, we said we were trying to stick to an hour. We can go a little over an hour, but I think the other thing for Black women, okay, so I think this is really important. So two things, when you were talking about climbing the ladder and you're doing more work, understand we don't have the same privilege within our institutional spaces to have. So you may see the high white patriarchal space chilling and not really having to do much stuff. You may see that, right? But what you represent what we represent in so many institutions, I don't know if that's so commonplace to have that same kind of energy, or that's afforded to us the same way. And I don't know if that's so much because of our way that we also process work. And so we feel like, okay, I'm in this really high place. I really got to prove myself. I really got to make sure I'm here earlier than everybody else, because now everybody's looking at me because I'm at the higher place. I don't know, it becomes a weird catch-22.
Yeah.
But the other thing about what kind of rest, I will say this is, just to kind of wrap up this point of that, what kind rest should also, though, afford to you joy. Yeah. And afford to you a space where you're beginning to reimagine. You're having enough accumulation of rest that you're actually tapping in to true self. You're tapping into your dreams. You're tapping into your creativity. You're tapping. And so don't think of it as abstractly as I'm kind of saying. Think of this. If I can really chill, how sometimes you'll just be thinking about things and daydream and like this, that is now a seed that could potentially help show. Whereas if you're working, you may not necessarily have time to reflect and imagine and see these other things. So rest also to me should be, and this is going to bring us to one of our things that I'm going to show, I love the way this author said this in this book that I want to highlight tonight, is it should be a portal. It should be a portal to us, to our divinity, to our spirituality, to our ability to imagine and to see ourselves in spaces, in the truth of ourselves and our true passions, and not, yes, there's a time to rest, to just sleep, of course, but also to dream and to experience kind of this euphoria that we have coined as that's just, girl, like, get real. You need to be realistic. You need to be practical. No, we don't. Why do we keep thinking we have to be so fucking practical all the time? We don't. We don't. And yes, there is a time for that. There are seasons and there's a lot of spaces. Yes, we do have to be realistic. Absolutely. But we also have to dream. We also have to dream. We have to, we have to get comfortable in that space so that we understand that our worth isn't tied to what we do, that our worth is in fact in our dreams, in our being, in our things. So
it's essential. I think also it's important for us to recognize, and you touched on it, and before we share this resource, which will go into a lot more detail about this concept, that because we are Black women and because it is in our genes based on our ancestors' experiences, we do have to work a little bit harder to be able to make rest a priority, because we're fighting against genetic code. At this point, we're fighting against mindset. We're fighting against programming. We're fighting against culture that we were brought into, that we were ingrained in. So understand that unless you had the blessing or the privilege of having elders around you who prioritized rest and gave you an example of what that looks like, you might be the first one in your whole lineage to say, hey, I'm taking a nap. Hey, rest is a priority around these parts. I'm changing the whole situation here for everybody who comes after me. So understand that if it feels like, what are these ladies talking about? I don't have time to take a nap every day, Kenya. I can't just be meditating all day. Like, understand it might seem a little out of the ordinary at first, but understanding how essential it is to our well-being, I think, is what helped me to make it a must and make it a priority.
My son just walked in. I'm like, that's mine.
Good.
So this is interesting. I'm gonna say this, and then we promise we're gonna start.
We're gonna wrap it up.
We're gonna start to wrap up, but we're gonna go over a little more than that. So I didn't know this when I was. So my mom, I will say this, and so I don't know. I have to tell my sister to watch this video and to join us. But my mother, every single Saturday, and most Sundays, my mother had her newspapers on the bed. She would get her little pretty pajama gown, 1970s, whatever, and she would sit in that bed, and she stayed in that bed all day. She would get up to pee. She would get up to, she would cook us a little something early in the morning. And Saturdays we knew, okay, mom's going to cook turkey necks. Yes, she would cook turkey necks, and turkey necks, listen, let me tell you what. Anyway, she'd have the greens, the turkey necks, because this was the time where she could really, I think, because my mom worked full time.
Yeah.
Yep, she could take the time to do. So she would do it in the morning. So the food was set for us. She would go in her room and she would stay in her bed and read her magazines, read the newspaper, maybe watch a show, nap, get up, maybe go to the bathroom, check in a little, go back in her bed. And it's funny, at that time, I didn't realize how much she was actually resting. Okay.
Yeah.
And she didn't talk to me about that. And I wish she had talked to me more about why she was doing that or what was happening for her. Because again, with this other genetic stuff, why she ain't doing nothing? Why ain't she doing that? Why can't we go? I want to go over such and such's house. I want to go why is she just going to stay in the bed all day?
Yep.
Now, and then my grandmother, when I think really carefully, I'm like, my grandmother, she wouldn't necessarily was the bed when I was around, because I wasn't raised fully around my grandmother, but when I was around her, she too she'd sit on the porch and just rest and just read her Bible and just be at ease. I did not watch my grandmother doing a whole bunch of work. Now, granted, my grandmother, because of the age difference, my mother and father were a little bit older when I was born. So my grandmother, she was in her, by the time I remember her probably in her 70s, early 80s. That was and so she was already in a space of I'm gonna take my time.
She's like, I'm chilling.
I'm gonna chill. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important for us to tell our children, tell our daughters why I'm resting and why I want you to rest too. So those of you who have daughters, I don't have daughters. But I have sons, and my sons, listen, they grab their rest. My son today came in my room. I need a mental health day today.
Okay.
Said, you need a mental health day today. You ain't done
what have you done?
Right. so I didn't have to pull it all together. But I had to sit down and tell him what mental health days really mean. Right. And how to not use that as just a trendy coin thing. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Like, we it's okay to take breaks. Right. But for particularly our daughters, for us to say and have conversations to them around that, and not just make it a spa day, not just make it okay, we got to go on a trip to such and such but really literally in our home, we are going to practice rest. This is why I recognize this. What do you think about this? And I think we as Black women, we have to start talking. My mom is from a generation where they're not going to talk about but so much, because that is the part of the culture of their generation. And I can't force her to necessarily, she shares what she, I think, feels as able as she's able to. But I think we have a different space where we can share our stories, so that, which is hence Black HERstory, so that maybe if my mom can't give it to me, I can go in spaces and hear more stories of Black women. And, maybe not just in the Hollywood spaces, the everyday spaces.
In the everyday spaces as well. Yeah. I think helping each other to recognize that rest is not a luxury, that it is your birthright. You have the right to rest just based on your existence on this planet. That's it. You don't need any special permission. You don't need any special privilege. Rest is part of it's a birthright. And it's I think, and I mentioned this a couple of times because I want really people to understand that when you rob yourself of rest, you compromise your well-being. Period.
Yeah.
Period.
Period.
Whether it happens immediately or happens down the line, when you compromise rest, you compromise your well-being. So if you are telling yourself, oh no, I don't have time, when your body feels tired, it's tired. When you're trying to stay up and watch that last episode of Harlem and your eyeballs are falling,
or you're going to get coffee, or you're trying to get something to keep your body up. Remember, this is when you are sleepy, when you are tired, like you just said, the body is way smarter than you. Don't sleep. It's it has to
sleep, but don't sleep on how smart your body is. Yeah, right. Actually go to sleep, but don't sleep. Yeah.
Your body is way ahead of the game.
That's right.
It knows exactly what it needs for you.
That's right.
So we have to start listening to it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
So you talked about rest is well-being, and rest is also resistance. So each time we meet on Thursdays, we are going to feature something, something special that we just have found as being beneficial. And this was the thing that I wanted to share is this book, which is called Rest is Resistance. And so it's a manifesto, and it's by Trisha Hersey, who is the founder of the NAP ministry. And so if you're on the social media streets and you're in Black Women Wellness, you have probably come across the NAP ministry, and NAP, like sleep, nap ministry. And she has created this whole kind of movement. And with this book, she's really pushing us not only to rest, but to understand that not only is rest our birthright, but it's also our form of resistance against these systems that have made us think that we have to work.
Right.
That in fact, I don't have to call you right back. In fact, I don't have to have my phone. I don't have to get on my laptop. I don't. And everybody's going to be fine. That level of resistance is actually also showing you how to treat me differently.
That part. Yeah. It's a behavioral boundary is what it can be. It's letting people know, like you said, I am not on call 24/7. And this is not just for your, your business relationship or your employer relationship. This is within your familial relationships. This is within your friend groups. This is all the spaces where you show up. Making rest a priority and making it essential is also teaching people how to do it for themselves.
Yeah.
At first they may be like, dang, Keisean, will we answer her phone? No, it's on D&D. I'll get back to you when I'm available.
And I will get back to you.
And I'll get back to you because I will get back to you. It might be the next day, but it's like your urgency is not my emergency. So you have to wait. I am resting right now.
Oh, look at you, Keisean. You got me. Your urgency ain't my emergency, girl. And we have to give more grace because all of us have done it. Why this person ain't called me back? Why they haven't texted me back yet? We all do it, right?
Yeah.
I'm learning, give people more grace.
Yeah.
Give them a minute. I'm kind of at this week kind of point, like 1 week. If it's business and stuff, like if it's friendship, I'm like, I'll give you a month, girl. I get it. Like shit, we got stuff to do.
Right.
So I got it. But when it's like business work stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give people if we have that level of space,
of course,
I'm gonna give you a week. And when I give it, I'm not gonna come back with attitude. I'm gonna just say, hey, I'm just checking in, just following up.
Yep.
Let me know if you need more time on this.
Yep.
But I think we have to also learn how to extend grace and offer that to our other fellow women. Don't get upset and pissy when people don't, when your girlfriend or when the colleague, that other Black female that you work with, we got to give each other the same graces that we want for ourselves so that we're teaching people how to treat us with rest, but we're also extending the permission slip for other women to rest.
Absolutely.
And this book does a really beautiful job with she's very redundant in this book intentionally. She's really, really pushing you to understand rest differently, to understand it as almost a social activism part that really gets you to understand that by you resting, you're in fact changing a system. Yeah. You're in fact doing social justice work by resting.
Right.
So yeah, it's
setting an
outstanding.
example, like you said, also for the next generation of those who come behind us. You know, when you read the book, there's a section where she talks about her son coming
Mm,
into the world and what that experience was like for
mhm.
her, and talks about, you know, what children are indoctrinated into thinking about, how, you know, abandoning their bodies and not listening to their
Mm,
bodies and things like that. So it's a deep one, and it will disrupt some of your
yes.
thinking when it comes to how you approach rest, and it will probably bring up some of those fears and some of those resistances and worries that you have about rest, but that's all the more reason to read it and check it out.
Yes,
So yeah.
yes. And I'm doing a new coaching program right now called the Take Ease coaching program. And to Lisa's point of like what kind of rest, I'm with this group of women. It's a small group of Black women over 40, where we're working on how do you learn how to take ease? How
Mm.
do you actually, because this is all really good. We got some good conversation and we can but then tomorrow comes and what the fuck? What am I doing? How am I gonna
Right.
do this? Or how am I gotta build this business though? Shit, I gotta pay these bills. Like, I mean,
Right.
like, how am I supposed to take ease? So this coaching program, I'm actually teaching the women, coaching them through taking ease and literally
Mhm.
saying, like, this thing we're gonna work on, we're spending 3 months on this thing. And it's like, what? It's like, yep,
Yeah.
because I want you to do this with ease. I don't
Yeah.
want you to feel pressured. I don't want you to be all gold. Did I get an A? Do I get a star? I
Mhm.
want you to sit with self for this month. And then next month, we're going to sit with self in a different way. And then the
Right.
next month, we're going to sit with self another way before we even think about breakthroughs and goals and actions. And we're going to get there,
Right.
but we got to slow ourselves down. So I say all that to say, you know, one, yes, the coaching program is technically still open. If that's something that's curious, we only have a couple more slots for it because I too need to take ease
Right.
in my
I was gonna
coaching.
say,
So I can't
yeah.
be coaching the world. You know, we
Right.
make 7 people. That's it.
Right.
Anyway, but learning how to make ease a way of life,
Mhm.
not these spurts. I'm gonna
Yeah.
wait till my vacation. I'm gonna plan my PTO every Christmas only,
Right.
or I always have the same 2 weeks, 2 out of
Right.
52.
Right.
How do you start making it a lifestyle where literally every single day, and you have
Mhm.
to build up to this, okay?
Mhm.
So I'm not saying to start off this way. I think you have to
Right.
take an inventory. How
I
often
think
do
so
you
too.
really think you're resting right now? And if
Right.
you're like, you know what, I only really rest that 1 week of vacation that I really get. And even then, I ain't really resting because I got my kids, I got everything else going on with it.
Mhm.
So it's like, well, let's start there. We got that 1 week. Can we build in an additional week somewhere? And maybe can we spread it out? Can we not make it at one time? Can we take a day here so that it's spread? But these kind of tactics of how to start where you are
Mhm.
with your rest, as opposed to reading a book or hearing us and deciding that tomorrow you got to cut your schedule complete. You may need to do that. You may
Right.
need to go cold turkey like that with your rest. But what you don't want to do is do the cold turkey rest and then get right back in the
To
rat
your
race again.
toxic habits. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's important because I think that happens often where people will hear a show like this, or someone recommends a great book, or they go to an event and they get, you know, they get fired up, you know, they get on fire for whatever it is, and they're like, I'm going to go home and change my entire life. And then that lasts for like 24 hours, and then everything kind of falls by the wayside. So doing like a gradual introduction, even with this, you know, for those who are thinking about addressing the question of, do I fear rest and why do I fear it? So maybe, you know, what you do this week is sit down with yourself and maybe pull out your journal or a piece of paper and ask yourself, do I fear rest? And if so, why? What is it
Yes.
that I'm afraid of? What do I think is going to happen if I do rest? What do I think I'm going to find on the other side of rest? And if it's something that you have been avoiding for some time, then maybe create some space to sit with that, you know, and ask
Yes.
yourself, you know, what would it look like if I did actually create the time to get still? What would it look like if I made the time to imagine, to daydream? How would my life look differently if I started doing these things? And maybe that is how you start to rest, is just by
Yes.
sitting down and reflecting for a little while and
Yes.
writing some of your thoughts down, because trying to dive into 12 feet of newness can be overwhelming versus
There
tiptoeing
ain't no
your
rest in
way in.
that.
Yeah, you gotta ease your way in, because then you're more likely for it to become real. versus something that feels like, oh, that sounds really cool. And those two Black ladies on YouTube are talking about this, but I don't know about all that. If you give yourself the time to kind of ease your way in, to your point, and let it flow through you, you'll start to see, oh, okay, this is where I can find rest.
Yes.
This is how I can practice rest. I'm gonna do it this way, and I'm gonna try it that way. And then it starts to become just a natural part of what you're doing every day.
Yes. And let yourself feel scared.
Yeah.
We have this thing about, no fear. You can't let fear, or, no, you're a human.
Mm-hmm.
You better get afraid at some points. This is, if you can think about, I tell people, think about children for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Children know how to take care of themselves. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm upset. Why? I don't feel like doing it. I'm gonna fall out. I'm on a plane. I don't feel comfortable. I don't care. I don't care what these people think. Why? They get it out. Yep. And then after they get it out, those of us who've had children or been around children, once you let them just get it out, what happens? They're fine.
Yep.
They get it out.
Yep.
They get it out. And then they're ready to move forward.
Right.
So don't think that we're so far removed. Yes, we have some development, maturity, all of the things, but we have to allow ourselves to feel sad, feel disappointment, feel fear, and do it in these safe spaces, the way you just explained, by journaling, by writing it out, by processing, by having a moment to just feel it. And having known that you've created this space. It can even be almost a date night with yourself. Light the candle, sit down, make it a pretty space, and cry.
Yeah.
And be okay with not being okay. Literally, don't wait for life to push you down. And now I got to feel the pain, because now I've just been pushed. I'm pissed. I'm pained. I don't want to do this. I got to get it together. I got to go.
Yeah.
You don't want that. You need to create your own space so that you can feel what you need to feel.
Right.
And allow yourself that, because once you get it out, it's you and we all know this. Oh, well, I feel a little bit better. It's just like vomiting. Get it out. It feels horrible to throw up. It's like to me, throwing up is like one of the worst. Feelings. I mean, it's a horrible feeling, but the immediate feeling is relief. Immediate is relief. And so we have to understand that we're not so far. If our bodies need that, don't think that your mind doesn't need that. Your mind is following that. It needs that. So I love what you just said. Start with just writing out it's like, listen, I fear that I know for me, mine was, I fear I'm going to have to leave this marriage. If I rest and really look at these things, I realize this is not what makes me happy. I fear that this is going to do this to me, and that I'm going to disappoint him. I'm going to disappoint my family. I'm going to disappoint my children. I'm going to change their entire lives in a way that I don't necessarily want for them. I'm afraid people are going to judge me. I'm going to lose my friendships. Like, all of those things were what was bounding me down in the situation. And so once I kind of could see the picture, it's not like in one swoop I had to solve it. It just at least let me admit some things. So then I was willing to start working on some things more specifically.
Absolutely. Giving yourself the time, I think, is important. It's easy to outrun ourselves. We get so good at it, especially the longer we've been doing it. We become professional sprinters away from our own ideas.
We become just as accomplished as we are in these other areas. I'm accomplished in this too.
Girl, I am a gold medalist at avoidance. Okay. So rest is a way for you to get real with yourself. She's a
gold medalist. A lot of us are. I mean, we almost, and the thing is unfortunate, because of the history, you had to be that.
We had to be. Exactly. And again, I think that's important. And I know we've touched on that too, but I think that's important for us to just remind folks who are watching this that we are all pretty clear how we got here, how we arrived at this point. And everybody's story is different. Everybody's experiences are different. And I think something that is universal, specifically for Black women, and we'll touch on this in another conversation, this whole trope of strong Black woman and what that means and the toxic, implications that come with that. We know how we got here, and we know the side effects. We know the physical pain, the mental anguish. We know all that stuff. So this conversation, I hope, serves as a reminder, as they say, like on TikTok, this is your reminder. This is your reminder. Now is the time for you to consider rest as the essential element of your well-being that it is. Now is the moment for you to take some time to yourself and ask yourself, what is it that you are avoiding by not giving yourself permission to rest? And be gentle with yourself, because life is not going to be gentle with you.
No, it's not. And when it does, thank you for that, Keisean. And that was a really strong PSA. Like, really seriously, let's be real with ourselves, ladies, because this is the thing. I am at the point now where I'm very clear that the way that as Black people, as a collective of Black people, the way that we are going to be able to move through the insanity that we are seeing is going to begin with our own first individual healing, so that there is collective healing.
That's right.
And individual healing doesn't mean doing healing in isolation. We have to stop thinking that I have to go figure this out all by myself.
Right.
You do not have to figure it out. You are going to need to spend time with self.
Yeah.
You're going to do some things independently, but community, having support, we have to learn how to ask for help and receive the help.
Right.
And use discernment, make sure we're safe with the help.
Right.
And work on our healing. That is our biggest resistance right now. The way that we are going to be the change makers that we want to see is to begin to we have to heal. There is no what's happening right now. If you think about when you fracture a leg or a wrist, what's the first thing they put on? A cast.
Yeah.
Something to support it. The reason it's supporting it is to get it in position so that as it heals, once it comes to healing, it's back into its functional space. What's happening, a lot of people emotionally have had from trauma from childhood, from all the things that you may have never had any control over. No control over. And so you learn to heal the best way that you could from that, but you didn't have the support you needed. And so now you've got you've got an emotional situation like this walking around.
Yep.
And so it's there. It kind of can work, but it's real limited. It's real limited. So as you start to begin to think about this healing work, this rest work, this is why I say get the support so you can get that cast, that anchor, that rod to help get you in position so that as you're doing that individual work, you're in position to just to move forward. But if we keep trying to do this work completely in isolation and not tell anybody what's going on with us and not getting anybody to kind of step into spaces where we can't, we are going to come out with cricket. And this is the thing. This is the other thing. And I'm going to put somebody said I'm so glad Kali is here in the audience. We draw in the same energy of where we're really needing the nurture. So this is the thing. If I'm walking around broke, I'm gonna draw in other broke, okay? Because
we're gonna find each other.
We're gonna find each other.
We're gonna try. Oh, you broke? We broke. We over here limping together with our little crooked casts wearing selves. Yeah.
So when I have women like, I can't attract, why am I attracting men that all got this? Understand this. And I'm not, no judgment, because listen, I'm divorced.
Like attracts like.
Come on.
Yeah.
We all do it. We all have it.
Yes.
We all have the injury. We all have the hurt, the wound. And we have it so that we will grow and that we will heal. So the thing is, if you are pulling in and you're like, why is all this going on? Understand that subconsciously, you're not going out trying to find the parent that abandoned you, but guess what? You're going to find the partner that may abandon you because this is the thing that you haven't sat with yet to nurture and to love up on and to get still on and to rest on. So it's serious. You know, we were laughing, but this is serious. Yeah. It's really serious. I want to we've got some nice comments here, and I want to just kind of put here. This is Original Hair Whisperer. Healing is essential and community is an amplifier. Come on, Khalid. Yes, absolutely. Let's go to another one. She's got to get going, but this was wonderful. Thank you for being open, honest, and willing to be transparent. Absolutely. And each attraction to the injury is a blessed invitation and opportunity to heal. Yes. Yes. The Sun King said something really just to give us great conversation, ladies. Shout this from the mountaintop.
Thank
Yes,
you. Thank you.
yes. Thank you for that. And each week we're going to, these are the kind of topics we want to get a little uncomfortable and share our own stories. But there's so much growth in discomfort. It's so much growth. When we're comfortable all the time, we're just comfortable.
Yeah.
So I don't mind. I don't think.
I don't mind. I think I'm comfortable being uncomfortable. Yeah. Yeah. But like you just said, you know, we can't do this in isolation. And I think that vulnerability is also a really important tool that we can use to be able to build connection, to create community. Like being vulnerable, being courageous enough to share our experiences. That's how people are able to heal as well, because they see like, oh, it's not just me. I'm not the only one who's experiencing this. I'm not alone in that. And I think that's part of what this particular space is for women to be able to come and see like, oh, her story is also my story, and my story is also her story. And while the particulars of it might be different, I think the feeling of it is very much the same. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we're getting getting ready to wrap up. Do you have something you want to feature?
I would say that the only thing I'm featuring right now is the Calm Collective, which is my private online community that launched at the beginning of February, and to my private community now it's launching to everybody. So you can find out more about that on my website. You can also find out more if you follow me on social. It's the space is definitely building. The intention of the space is also to attract other healers, facilitators, coaches, teachers, and guides. So this isn't the Keisean space, it's a collective space. So those who work with me individually, you know, I coach one-on-one. The intention of the Calm Collective is for me to be able to attract other providers who want to be able to offer their insights and their expertise to the community at large. So you can learn more about that at KeiseanRaines.com, or you can find me on socials at Keisean Raines.
As I said, follow her, guys. We put our social media tags so that you guys can follow us and see all the goods. Both of us do a lot of shit.
We do a lot of things.
But we're taking ease. We're taking ease. Seriously, we are. We both have collaborated. Say less is more. I just shared, you know, I've had the most probably productive quarter I've ever had, and I did a whole lot less. A whole lot less. So, you know, similarly, if this book is something that the Take Ease coaching program, if that sounded interesting, this is a book that I give everyone who takes the program. This is my gifting to you. And if you're curious to learn a little bit more about that, similar to Keisean, you can go to @KenyaMJ Music on the social media spaces. Especially Instagram. If you look in the bio, the link, it really lists all the different things. And so we're going to be back again next Thursday. No, we don't know what the topic is yet, so don't worry. But we got a whole list. We have a list that will cover us, I think, like a year and a half.
I feel like we have a lot of things that we can say between now. We got 50 weeks worth of topics at minimum, if not more than that.
Yes. And if there's a topic that you're like, oh, can you guys talk about, then, you know, I should put this in the thing. You can email us so that, yes. And I think do I have yes, I do. Here we go. Okay. Yeah. You can email us questions and topics. This is actually the Finding Your Voice After 40. That's my company. And I got to put Keisean's email, but yours is really easy. What is the best email, or do you not prefer that?
They can email me. It's just connect@KeiseanRaines.com.
So either way, I didn't type that. This was pre-planned.
It's fine.
I had this.
It's fine. Actually, email Kenya, because she better with the emails.
Like email Kenya. So yes, if you have some questions or you have some topics, some ideas you want us to explore and share, please email us at that info@findingyourvoiceafter40.com, and we will add it to the list. And as we go through, we will be inviting guests periodically to join us to hear their perspectives. And it won't always be women. I really do want to bring men in the space, because as women, I think it's super, super, super duper important for us to, again, we're here as the collective. And whether, you know, the male voice, non-binary voices, we need to be able to hear, because we're moving through this as a collective. So
absolutely,
you know, how their stories are and what perspectives they bring to the table will help so much for us
Yeah.
to also navigate, these connections that we have. So
Yeah.
I think that's it tonight.
I think that's it. We did great. Thank y'all for hanging out. We'll see you.
We did great. We give ourselves a hand.
We did great. Hey, this has been a long time coming. So I'm glad that we're here. I'm looking forward to next week. And again, thank you everybody who tuned in live. And I know folks will also tune in and watch later. So please share this with anyone that you care about. And we will see you at the same time next week.
Yep, we'll be back next Thursday. What is the date? I don't know, but we'll be back then. Is that the 24th, 23rd? We're here every Thursday. We start at 8 p.m. Central. Yep. Yeah. We start 8 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. California Pacific time, and then 9 p.m. Eastern if you're on the East Coast. If you're international, oh Lord, I don't know. Look at the world clock.
Measure it by Central time. Measure it by Chicago time.
Well, the other problem is America. Everybody else is stopping changing their time.
Oh,
so
that's
we're
right.
in this weird space right now.
Yeah,
this is so. Check your clock.
Check your clock. Also, just make sure you subscribe and turn the notification thing on so you'll know.
Oh my God, why aren't we saying that? What's wrong with us?
It's okay.
Oh my God.
We're together. We support each other. I remind you. You email her. I'm gonna tell you to turn the notification on.
Yes, subscribe and
subscribe.
Click the bell. Click the bell. How about that? Let's do that. So,
y'all, we are really over 40. So here we are. Okay, we're trying to remember to take naps, y'all. We forgot to tell you to subscribe and click the notification bell. But
that should have been the first thing we said. Anyway. All right, so I'm going to end the broadcast. Keisean, you stay there for a moment, but we'll see you guys next week. All right, you guys take care. Bye.